done within about 60 days from when it starts. And we've also let residents know that we are making a bit of a change downtown with respect to Ormond and Orchard Streets. Both of those very narrow city streets are currently two-way traffic with parking, and those are going to be changed to one-way streets effective July the 2nd. Staff will be converting the southern portion of Ormond between Pearl and King, and Orchard from King to Pearl, both to one-way streets. Ormond will become a one-way southbound, and Orchard will become a one-way northbound. And again, these changes are only between King and Pearl on both of those streets. So we're doing our best to get that information out. Of course, very prevalent signage will be installed, and we just appreciate everyone's help in passing on that information to those who may not have seen it. So those are my remarks for this evening, and thank you for your indulgence. We'll start our agenda with asking if there's any disclosure of interest and the nature thereof. And seeing none, we'll move to the adoption of council minutes. And Councillor Hobbs, will you take that item, please?
Thanks, Your Worship. That the minutes of the council meeting of May 14th, 2024 be adopted and circulated as read.
Thank you, Councillor Hobbs. Is there any discussion, errors, or omissions in the minutes? Seeing none, by show of hands, all in favor, and that carries. Thank you. Correspondence, communication, and petitions. We have some appointments to boards and committees. And Councillor Wells, will you put that on the floor, please?
Yes, Your Worship. So I move that Evan McCurdy be removed from the Heritage Brockville Committee, that Winfield Sifton and Carson Dowds be appointed to the Brockville Railway Tunnel Committee, and that Councillor Severson be appointed to the Arena Advisory Board, and that the necessary bylaw be enacted.
Thank you, Councillor Wales. I just want to thank, on behalf of Council, Mr. McMurtry for his service on Heritage Brockville, and to the new appointees who have come forward to assist us with the tunnel. We're grateful. Thank as well to Councillor Severson for taking a role with the Arena Advisory Board. That board has not had a council member sitting on it for a while, and of course with the path forward with respect to redevelopment at the Memorial Centre, I think it's really important that Council has a presence as a resource to members of that committee. So thank you, Councillor. By show of hands, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And Councillor Deery, if you would take the next proclamation.
Thank you, Your Worship. That the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brockville hereby proclaim the week of Monday, June 24th to Monday, June 30th, 2024 as St. John Ambulance Week, and that the St. John Ambulance flag be flown at the County Bay.
Thanks, Councillor Deery. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. For delegations this evening, we do have a delegation with us. We are recognizing National Accessibility Week, and it was a pleasure to join members of the Brockville Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee, also known as BMAC, at a flag raising ceremony yesterday morning, which I believe you can see just out the window over my right shoulder. This year, the theme for National Accessibility Week is Forward Together, Accessibility and Inclusion for All, emphasizing the need for collective efforts to create a barrier-free Canada. Our country's strength lies in the diversity of its people, all of its people, and we can all contribute to this vision. As a way to demonstrate collective efforts, and in Brockville there are certainly many of them, we welcome members of BMAC here to Chambers this evening. They're here to help us honor individuals and organizations who greatly contribute to the vision of a barrier-free community. We have two members of the, we have three members of the committee here this evening. We have the chair, Janet Jones. We have Greg Bamber, a committee member, Councillor Louise Severson, who sits on the committee. And am I missing anyone, Ms. Jones, as far as committee? No. So with that, I'd like to turn the podium over to you if you'd like to use the microphone so that those watching online can hear. And welcome and thank you for being here. Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Bamber, thank you.
Happy Accessibility Week. First one, we're honoring people for what they've done in the community as far as accessibility. And we're going to start off with the canoe and kayak people behind me here. And the canoe and kayak launch in St. Lawrence Park was not always accessible according to Ontario Accessibilities for Ontario Disability Act 2001, which requires public spaces to be accessible. In 2023, a delegation to council by Catherine Starr and Andrea Ellis raised the issue of barriers to paddling for some people with mobility issues. Mayor Wren visited this area with the members of the delegation. Funds were found to grants to cover the cost of building this accessible launch. Still, more work is needed to be done to make the land in the St. Lawrence Park accessible also. This group has increased in its members to 765 in this year alone. Members are committed to helping to make our waterfront accessible to all. On their Facebook, Paddle Place, Brockville and area, with 1.5K members, it is in a hub to share this information for all levels of experience. Tomorrow, there will be a meeting at 6 p.m. to highlight the accessible launch. This is expected that paddlers from the other cities will attend to see what Brockville has to offer and will look to change the spaces as well. We thank the paddlers of Brockville and area for their ongoing commitment to make accessible a reality.
Thank you, Mr. Bamber. So we just invite the members present. First of all, if you'd like to say a few words, and then we'll ask you to come forward for a certificate. Just use the microphone if you would like to speak.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, sure.
We came up with this idea while paddling one night, that we should make our sport more accessible to people with different abilities than our own, and for seniors, because as we age, we get some dodgy bits that don't bend and stand. So it'll be a help for a lot of people. And we've had great feedback from parents who have children, special needs children who have had to travel to paddle. Now they can do it in their own backyard. And when we did our presentation, we added a component of tourism. So we've invited all the Ontario paddlers and Durham Region paddlers and Ottawa paddlers to Brockville, because is there a prettier place in the province?
So upon the successful completion of the accessible boat launch, we now are pleased that everyone has access to our beautiful river and the islands. And we'd like to thank Mayor Matt Wren and councillors for once again demonstrating their commitment to accessibility for all. So thank you.
Our pleasure. We just ask you to come up for. Actually, I'll come back here so maybe Janet can run this for a photo. There we go.
Cycling Without Age was founded in Copenhagen, Denmark in 2012. Joanne Bell, Greg McElray founded the chapter in Brockville in 2019. Mike Lobos and Jeff Sullivan complete their present board. As of February 2023, there were more than 3,050 chapters around the world, well over 4,100 trishaws, and more than 39,000 trained pilots. Cycling Without Age, Brockville is 100% led with 20 trained volunteer pilots. Cycling Without Age, Brockville relies on the generosity of individual donors, corporate donations, grants, and service clubs to help keep our bikes in motion. At the present time, they offer rides to over 12 facilities as well as individuals who contact them, giving seniors and those of any kind of mobility limitation at any age the chance to, quote, feel the wind in their hair, the motto of the Cycling Without Age. Today, we thank the Cycling Without Age volunteers for this wonderful experience. You can contact them at brockvillecwa@gmail.com.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Ms. Jones.
You want to bring your poster too? Show off your poster.
I just wanted to show council,
Hold up to your
this
mic.
is the Velo Plus that we purchased a year ago. So it's a wheelchair transport bike. And we were probably one of the first ones in Canada to have one. And now I know 2 other chapters that have bought one because we have one. So we're the only chapter between here and I think Toronto, on the outskirts of Toronto. So we're really happy with what we have accomplished.
Here.
Maybe I can mention that we have 2 of these now, and we have 2 trishaws. So, pardon? Oh, and our covered trailer that we take the bikes all over the place with. So, okay.
Yeah. Ken Spicer, although, get over that.
I'm gonna hold it.
Ken Spicer, although not a Brockville native, has made himself a fixture in the Brockville scene. He is the owner-operator of Brockville Home Health Care and is very active with his son in youth hockey. He also has a farm where he has the cutest goats. Who wrote this? He is also very cognizant and very plaintive in those of us on disability pensions, finding ways for us to get the equipment we need at a price point that we can afford, or doing quick fixes at no cost, and always with his award-winning smile. His employees are the same and assume he fosters environment of happiness, helpfulness, and it's a great honor to present him and awards of a comment and his important work in his field. Congratulations, Ken Spicer and Brockville Home Health Care. That was on behalf of Matt Wilson.
Yes.
Matt Wilson was in here bragging about you one day. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, all you people do in this beautiful city of Brockville. I will correct one thing that was said about me. I am a native of Brockville. My family's been in Brockville and areas for many, many years. We had Spicer Bus Line, Spicerville Farms. That's what brought me back to Brockville. I was very active in the sports scene, and this gentleman over here, his dad was a big part of my life at high school. And yeah, I moved away to find a dream, and obviously my dreams come true back here in my hometown. So I do live in the Century Home that was built in our family back in 1849, just north of here on Spicer Road. So there is another Ken Spicer in town. We're not related, but I carry a very proud name. The accessibility world for me has been, it's been my life for the last 26 years. I worked in Kingston for, I call them competitors, but my world is not so much a business, it's a lifestyle, and we're consultants. Obviously, we're here to make money. We're here to, provide food on the table for our families, but we're also here to, adapt and help people in need in the community. And when you mention the word accessibility and the word in Brockville, we do have a generation in this town that's, I want to call experienced, older than most. But accessibility isn't just a fine person in a great wheelchair. It's also a mom with a stroller that has a hard time getting into a business, maybe downtown, that has a 3 or 4 inch rise into their front step. It's somebody who basically maybe can't reach a door handle, get into a bathroom, a pure necessity. Could be I love what we're talking about right now about placing a new rink up here. As mentioned, my kids are very involved in hockey, and as soon as I'm done here, I'm running my son to Kingston. He's just drafted to the Windsor Spitfires this year, so we have ice time in Kingston tonight. We can't offer that here. Sledge hockey, very accessible. I mean, if we think outside the box, there's so much we can do with this facility outside of just the able-bodied people. I'm pretty excited about the conversation and that happening. It'll be beyond my kids' time, but I'd love to be an active promoter of anything accessible in this community. I love what the Canoe Club's done. I've been involved with other places in this province with accessible ramping down into the water, accessible bath chairs, as you will, that you could take into the water, big balloon tires. Like, this conversation could go on all night with me because I live this world. I did bring Leanne Knapp with me. She's my store manager, friend. Talk about surrounding yourself with good people. Leanne is the best of the best. I've basically taken my business that I've sort of groomed, and I've put people around me that are like-minded. And Leanne, I've got to the point now I can work on my business rather than in my business. And Leanne is a big part of that. So it's important that she is here to be recognized, because so much happens behind the scenes. When you say Ken Spicer, it's not just Ken, it's a team effort. So I want to say thank you very much. And the bike people, I've seen these guys rolling around town, and a lot of my customers are sitting in their bikes, and there's nothing like getting out and getting some fresh air. I mean, hats off to you guys.
Now, last but definitely not least, Ryan Billing. Ryan joined BMAC in 2007, sharing his extensive knowledge of accessibility. Ryan chaired BMAC until he resigned in 2023. Long known for his commitment to community service, Ryan embodies the true spirit of volunteerism. His actions over the years through BMAC are synonymous with stewardship. Yes, he was the person who took care of or arranged for or managed the interests of accessibility community. And for that long-term service, he deserves the recognition brought forward this evening. We on BMAC like to think that his passionate involvement has enabled him to transition to another yet very important community venture, namely the Brockville Winter Classics Committee. Congratulations, Ryan. And on behalf of the council and the citizens of Brockville, we salute your efforts. Speech.
Yeah, I'm normally have a lot of words to say. No, I'm taking it back. Thank you very much. A little emotional. 'Cause you mentioned my dad. That's not fair over there. Let's collect myself. Okay. Yeah, no, accessibility. I think Ken hit on something that's probably the biggest point. He stole my speech, I think. I'm gonna check, even though I don't have one. Accessibility, I think I always pride myself on the fact that accessibility is accessible for all. We do something that actually improves accessibility for people with disabilities. We improve for everybody. You mentioned the moms with the strollers. It's access, it's freedom to use. And that's not, it used to be, it's about how are we doing that to help people with vision impairment? How are we doing that to physical disability? And I think that's proud that I was part of this in our city to actually make it about, does this make sense to make a place fully accessible? And how could that look differently in a variety of places? I give credit to the AODA as well. I should certainly, that legislation has been a key factor to move our city and our province forward. And to that, I thank the province, because that's really given a lot of energy to our committee. It's given the tools for the city to make successful implementations of projects. And it's really given, I think, business community an acceptance of disability. I'm like an old career person here. Like I'm 20 years, I guess, in the same career working with people with disabilities. At Career Services in Brockville. What I've seen is an employer community change their focus and look at what needs they have and how the people that we service help them, as opposed to us telling that social services story of why you should be a good employer. So that's a reflective of, I think, the changes that our community have undertaken over these years. And I thank council, because you're part of that. It starts with creating an image. It starts with backing that up with this is how we want to live. And so I do appreciate council for taking the vision of accessibility. We live in a fairly inaccessible city. You look at our downtown core here. So there's lots of things. There's a lot of inaccessibility with our downtown buildings still. That's something that's, that's uncontrollable with AODA. When we have new buildings come in, those measures are in there. So it's still work to be done. It's about educating to shop owners on why it makes sense to have a bigger width doorway and why wheelchair accessibility makes sense to you. So we're not done where we're at. And I know that the BMAC committee here are great people who have a vision and care. We always joke around, you're not in it for the big bucks on the BMAC committee, because really there were none for us. But I think it was people coming to the table because they wanted to see Brockville be accessible community. So I'm no longer on the BMAC committee, but certainly I would hope that I'm used in collaboration as an advocate, maybe to get information. Daily, I live it, where my job is to still make Brockville accessible. So whether it's on a BMAC committee or my day-to-day operations, I'm still working to make sure accessibility is something that happens in Brockville. So I thank you for the opportunity. I'm still blaming you for mentioning my dad, wanting to make me emotional here, but I do thank everyone for it. I appreciate it. We just have to have Ron make sure that the only thing you have to be. I'm asking for that picture as well. Yeah, just this. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, before I have any closing remarks, I'll just ask Ms. Jones if you do, and then we're going to make another introduction and have a photo in a moment. But I don't want to step in if you have some further remarks for us.
One of the comments made when we wanted to have 4 certificates given and someone says, well, we can't do too many because what are we going to do next year? And I went, no, greater things are going to happen with individual plans, our work with the city, and businesses. That's a really important part of it, is that everybody is coming together. They hear a little bit. I talk about the big part of BMAC's job is to plant seeds. We'll mention, well, maybe something could be fixed, or, maybe a few years from now it'll happen, but that's okay. We plant seeds, and we see with people being so eager to step in and help, that it's going to happen. And I'd also like to give a big thank you to Councillor Severson. She has been involved with BMAC from the beginning, almost real close. When she returned to council, the first thing she said is she wanted to be the council representative for BMAC again, and has done amazing things. She won't admit it, but she does, to help us and to bring things together. And we certainly thank Councillor Severson for all that you do for us. So now we're going to have a group
Well,
picture.
in just a moment, but I just want to thank all of you for the recipients and honorees here tonight, for all the things that you do to make life easier for people to manage in our community, and certainly to BMAC for being the voice to help this body understand priorities and planning. And like you said, this is work that will never be done, but I'm glad that we're working on it together. And thank you for helping us understand these priorities and keeping them front of mind for the city of Brockville. We're grateful. Before we go to a photo, and there may be some other members here who would like to say a word or two, but one of our colleagues has just taken on a special new role that's very compatible with the recognition that we're doing this evening and the week that we are recognizing. Ms. Jones had asked me if we could invite Councillor Laverne to say a few words about her new responsibilities with the Canadian Paralympics. Councillor Laverne.
Well, thank you. That's a surprise, but thank you. Yeah, well, since 2014, I've been working for Défi Sportif Altergo, which is a sport event for people with different abilities, as a transport coordinator. And 3 weeks ago, I was hired for the Canadian Paralympic Committee to go and work as transport advisor for our teams during the Paris 2024 games. So I'm really excited. It's a lot to learn because it's all the protocol and everything, but it's amazing. And if I can bring my little drops in the ocean, and make a difference. I also worked, because you're opening me the door, with the Rickenson Foundation for the APN 2024, which is the Accessibility Professional Network Conference in Vancouver. And they're going again to do it next year. And it's going to be March 27, 28. And I think it would be great if some representative from the BMAC could attend. It's an amazing event. I was doing logistic for it. And I think, to have someone to represent us over there and to also connect would be awesome. Because to me, it's one thing to say for a building, for example, or, the DARPAT is large enough for a wheelchair, but there's so much more that we have to do, that we must do, than just having a door that is large enough for a wheelchair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Laverne. So why don't we just take a couple of moments if any councillors have a brief comment. I see Councillor Severson's hand, and welcome any others as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say thank you for the accolades, and thank you, Ryan, for making me go up there and with no shoes on. Anyway, back in 2006, when I joined council, one of the committees, somebody asked me, would you go on the accessibility committee? And that's like 18 years ago. So I thought, accessibility committee, I'm pretty young. I didn't know what accessibility was all about, so I joined. And I have to say that it just was a joy in a way to be there and to realize how important it is for our city to become accessible. And at that time, Your Worship, through our budgeting, and I'm not sure who put the motion on the floor, but we gave 40,000 a year over a 5-year period, and then it was renewed, and we did 40,000 again over another 5-year period, bringing it to 10 years. And during that period of 10 years, the Accessibility Committee, along with staff, would choose buildings and places to make them more accessible. And it was quite a thing to behold, because it was staff and accessibility issues working together to make Brockville try to make it as accessible as possible. We're not there. We have much to do. And I thank all of the recipients here tonight for all that you do for Brockville. Imagine being the first with the bicycle with a wheelchair, and then the first to offer a ramp going down into the water. I think it's just amazing what Brockville does. And I thank all of you here tonight for all the work you do to make Brockville accessible, including Greg and Janet and all of those that sit on the committee. So thank you.
Thank you. Very well. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight, and our continued appreciation of all you do. And we'd just like to invite everyone to come forward so that we can get a photograph for newspaper purposes, hopefully. So please join me at the front. Very well. So we will move forward with our agenda this evening, and thank you all for your participation. We'll just give it a moment. Exactly. Great idea. Okay. So we'll move to our next agenda item, which is our council priorities strategic plan. And Councillor Fullarton, if you would bring that forward, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move report number 2024-106, 2023-20 to 2026, Council Priorities Strategic Plan, that the 2023 to 2026 strategic plan be adopted as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Fullarton. And I think the city manager is going to speak to the report, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you will recall, on earlier this year, council saw a draft of the plan and undertook to do some public consultation. We did send the plan out for public consultation through our social pinpoint site, and there was we've reviewed the comments and the feedback, and a vast majority of the feedback was very supportive and of the identified priorities within the report. So now we're asking council to adopt and then release the full plan that will provide answers that were to the questions that were perhaps posted during the consultation period. And further to that, what will happen is staff will be reporting on a regular basis on the outcome or the progress of the plan as we go forward. I'll be happy to answer if there are any specific questions.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. I'll open the floor to discussion, and I see Councillor Wales.
Thanks very much, City Manager McDonald. I just wanted to ask through you, Your Worship, how many responses we got from Social Pinpoint.
Ms. McDonald.
If you don't mind, I'll actually ask the clerk to respond to that. She's been working directly with the site.
Of course, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Through you. So the survey was posted on our new site, which is engagebrockville.com, and we plan to post a number of surveys when we're seeking public feedback through that site. For this particular survey, we received 66 responses, and it was posted for 3 weeks.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. It's a good number. It may not seem like a lot in terms of relative to our population, but it is. It can sometimes be difficult to get input. So I'm glad that people are excited about the plan. That's great. And I'm excited about this tool. I'm looking forward to hearing more responses in the future to other initiatives. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, just add a couple of brief comments. I just want to mention, obviously, we are well on our way of this term when this is coming forward. But if you do look at the detail within the plan, there are a number of things that, of course, we're already working on and well underway. It took a little time to develop this because it was a very in-depth process. It was a lot of time spent together with council, senior management. And basically what we did was brought back all that we heard from citizens during the election process. That's basically the basis that underpins the document and all the strategic initiatives that are placed there. So we consulted with the community in a number of ways. Also, when you look at the priorities that we're going to be dealing with, and I've mentioned this on a couple of things previously of projects that were determined, last term, the term before, that now this council is responsible to carry forward. Not all projects fit into a 4-year election cycle. And that's why it was so important that staff were a key element in devising this plan because they're looking long term and not just in 4-year windows. Not that we're looking in 4-year windows either, but it was important to marry those two perspectives together. And I think we can be really proud of the end result and look forward to continuing to work on these initiatives and to report our progress to the community as we go along. So thank you all for your participation, and especially to all the staff of the city who worked very closely with us, and to all the citizens for their support, encouragement, and feedback. Thank you so much. With that, we'll call the question.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the matter before you, Councillor Deery, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Earl?
Yes.
Councillor Fullarton?
Yes.
Councillor Hobbs?
Yes.
Councillor Calabas?
Yes.
Councillor Laverne?
Yes.
Councillor Severson?
Yes.
Councillor Wales?
Yes.
Mayor Wren?
Yes.
The matter is carried. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, the next report has to do with the World Junior Hockey Championship. Councillor Calabas, would you bring that forward, please?
Excited to put this on, Your Worship. That council directs staff to apply to Hockey Canada to be a host community for the pre-competition camp for the 2025 World Junior Championships held in Ottawa in 2025. And maybe I'll have Wood give us a brief of what we can, who is it? Of what we can expect. Of what we can expect to see from that.
Sure. Maybe if I just might mention before staff speak, this has come up a little bit quickly. When I was at the Arena Advisory Committee meeting in March, it was mentioned that Brockville had hosted a team in the 2009 version of the World Juniors, which was the last time it was held in Ottawa. So I reached out to a Brockville native. Cyril Leader happens to have a role to play in fairly high-level hockey, of course, as president of the Ottawa Senators, which is the host facility. And Mr. Leader was very kind to keep us apprised of when the RFP process would open and so forth. It's a fairly short window of time, but we had the benefit that the city applied, and it was through this process in 2008-9. And so staff are confident that, basing on that experience previously, that should council wish to move forward with this, that we will be able to meet the very quickly impending deadline that's coming up. And at least 3 members of this body, I think, were part of council during the last version. So we'll ask whether Mr. Wood or Mr. Nolan would like to take us through the report.
I'm happy to have Phil take this on. Thank you, Your Worship. So this report outlines an opportunity that has come to staff's attention last week. Staff are seeking council's direction to apply to be a host community for the pre-competition camp for the 2025 World Junior Hockey Championships, which are going to be hosted in Ottawa. So the World Juniors are going to be played between December 26th to January 5th, 2025. As part of this tournament, there will be a training camp and pre-competition schedule between December 18th to 24th. Hockey Canada is looking for proposals from communities interested in hosting a team in the pre-competition camps and exhibition games. Proposals need to be submitted to Hockey Canada by Friday, June 7th, 2024. As the mayor has just indicated, in 2009, the World Juniors were hosted in Ottawa as well. And Brockville was successful in a bid to host the pre-competition camp, with the Latvian team being hosted and based here in the city. Interestingly, the Latvian team is going to be participating in the World Juniors this year as well. So the Hockey Canada RFP outlines the expectation and obligations for host communities. The staff report provides a comprehensive list of the commitments and obligations, but we just wanted to highlight some of the key ones for council. So the big one is there is a $25,000 hosting fee, which is payable to Hockey Canada. This is so that other teams can come here and they help pay for the cost of those teams coming to the community. They would be expecting a waiver of the rental fees for the venue. There's cost sharing for game operations and event staff costs. There are promotional expenses that need to be covered by the host community. There's an ability to provide, or the host community has to have an ability to provide ticket sales and servicing. There is a 30% revenue split on any of the ticket sales. So the host community would retain 30% of the ticket sales. The venue needs to have or be able to provide existing retail space for Hockey Canada. Hockey Canada would retain all of the sales from those. The city would also be expected to support the team through securing accommodation, providing coordinating local meal providers, and also providing support services to the team, such as snacks, post-game meals, and other services. Hockey Canada do require that the venue has to have a minimum of 2,000 seats and needs to be an NHL-size ice pad. They need to have dedicated dressing room space, secured storage space, media seating, and video capability, and a dedicated hard and wireless internet service. Staff are recommending that the host expenses be a pre-approved 2025 expense funded through the municipal accommodation tax. And we're just here tonight to seek council's direction on whether to apply for this opportunity or not.
Mr. Nolan, before I open the floor to discussion with members, I just wanted to ask a question of you. In the copy of the bid from 2007 or 9, forget the year, there's a financial sort of overview of expenses and receipts. And it looks like the hosting fee was included then at a higher amount all those years ago at 28,000. But it looks like at the end of the day, there was net income, all things considered, of only about $3,000. So is this host fee sort of a deposit, and might the city in the end recuperate some of those expenses?
So the host fee would be paid if you are selected. So it's not necessarily a deposit to apply, but you would have to pay as part of being a host community. The revenue that is generated through ticket sales is expected to come back to the community. There are other revenue generating opportunities such as 50/50 draws, any parking charges that for cars parking. So there are some revenue generating opportunities. Sponsorship is also a possibility, though Hockey Canada does have the ability to select their sponsor for a particular game. Staff haven't gone down to the detail of putting a budget together per se. We would like to get through to the point where we've got an application or at least a proposal forward, and then we would be working on what the revenue would look like and what the ultimate costs would be.
Okay, thank you so much. Councillor Calavas, we'll start with you.
Well, certainly as far as the opportunity to generate some revenue, I think is there. But first and foremost, though, I think it's just an opportunity for Brockvillians and area to see some very, very high quality hockey in the World Juniors, even if they're just coming here to be part of the process or be part of the community and use the Memorial Center as a practice facility. I'm hoping that we could, if we could potentially have an exhibition game or something like that, even that itself would be a great revenue source. And also, again, the opportunity to see some fantastic hockey and even the practices themselves. There is no issue at all as far as even to sell tickets just for the practice, because you just don't see that high quality hockey here. So it's an opportunity for us, and I don't think that we should let it go. I'll be supporting it.
Councillor Calavas, thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to remember back to when the Latvian team was last here. They were a fine young bunch of gentlemen that I think represented their team and their country well, and they left nothing but good impressions with the city and what they did here. And I think it's excellent when we get a chance to host such individuals in our city that can be good examples of what young amateur sports is and can be. And so I would certainly support these. Revenue, it seems to be relatively neutral. But I think it's although it may be relatively neutral, I think it's experience positive for the people and the kids that play hockey in Brockville.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Councillor Laverne, and then Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Wood. Just to confirm, there's nothing already signed, events or a wedding during those dates that we would have to move. That's the logic,
Staff have any answer for that?
Just through Your Worship, I will definitely double check. I don't know of any, but I don't have that information in front of me either.
Follow up.
I would love if it was moving forward, being involved in the sledge hockey championship in Montreal, to be involved into this championship as well.
Thank you. Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, Your Worship. I also want to say I think it's a great idea, and actually whatever it costs, it's a small price for the amount of marketing it gives you globally. And to have that opportunity with Hockey Canada is great. And I know there's other cities around that have a lot more money to bid on these types of sporting events. And for us to be able to pick up some slack or to do something, work with them, is a really great opportunity. So this is amazing to have this happen. So thanks for spearheading that one. Thanks.
Very good. Any further discussion? I just want to add that back in 2008-9, was able to attend a couple of the games in Ottawa and took my dad. And my dad played some pretty high level hockey in the Air Force in the 60s in Europe. And I remember his comments leaving those games. It was some of the best hockey he'd ever seen, to Councillor Calavas's point earlier. So I think it would be a real thrill and a real treat for our community if we are successful. And I'm not at all surprised to hear supportive comments from members of council. So thank you for that. I would just mention too, if we are successful, we will need the community behind this. We'll need to be assembling a committee, and we'll need volunteers in various capacities. So look forward to our call for help if and when we're so fortunate to be selected. So with that, we will call the question on the motion before us.
Thank you, Mayor Wren. On the matter before you, Councillor Deery, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Earl?
Yes.
Councillor Fullarton?
Yes.
Councillor Hobbs?
Yes.
Councillor Calavas?
Yes.
Councillor Laverne?
Yes.
Councillor Severson?
Yes.
Councillor Wales?
Yes.
Mayor Wren?
Yes.
That matter is carried. Thank you.
Thank you all. That's wonderful. All right, we'll move next to the General Committee, which met last week. We have a consent agenda and we have 2 individual items as well. And we'll go to the chair, Councillor Fullarton.
Thank you, Your Worship. All matters listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Should a council member wish an alternative action from the proposed recommendation, the council member shall request that this matter be moved to separate the item. Are there any?
Councillor Severson?
Through you to Madam Chair, can I have the MAT tax item 1 moved to discussion, please?
Thank you.
Good.
Any further items? All right.
Okay. In that case, we'll have Councillor Hobbs take items 2 and 3, Councillor Deery take items 4 and 5, and I'll take items 6 and 7.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 2, 2024-105, the Margarita Residence Corporation, 42 Garden Street Project Loan Extension Request. That council received a letter from the Margarita Residence Corporation requesting an extension to the existing construction loan, and that council approve an extension to December 15th, 2024, or 120 days after the point of substantial completion, whichever comes first. Item number 3, 2024-100, the single axle plow truck. That council approve an additional expenditure of $13,591 funded by debenture to proceed with the 2024 capital project to purchase a new single axle plow truck in accordance with the 2024 capital budget. Sorry, and that council received the staff report detailing the procurement method in accordance with procurement policy point F.20.139 for information.
Item number 4, 2024-90, options for arena canteen food services. That council directs staff to develop a detailed operation plan for city staff operated arena canteens to be presented to the general committee in June. Item number 5 is 2024-95 is road rehabilitation at various locations. This report is for information purposes.
Item number 6, 2024-96, routing, cleaning, and sealing cracks in asphalt pavements. This report is for information purposes. Item number 7, 2024-97, traffic controllers and detection devices. This report is for information purposes.
Very well. Those are the items, and we'll call the roll, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the matter before you, Councillor Deery, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Earl?
Yes.
Councillor Fullarton?
Yes.
Councillor Hobbs?
Yes.
Councillor Calavas?
Yes.
Councillor Laverne?
Yes.
Councillor Severson?
Yes.
Councillor Wales?
Yes.
Mayor Wren?
Yes.
That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have Councillor Severson is indicated for the regular agenda item.
Yes. Sorry, are you going to go to those before the one that we removed? Your preference.
Which,
Okay.
go ahead.
You want me to do this one?
So we'll continue then with the multi-use recreation facility. Is that what you'd like to do?
Yep.
Okay.
Councillor Severson, over to you.
Okay. I was just reading out a condensed presentation. The council received staff report 2024-103 multi-use recreational facility update for information, and that staff return to future general committee meeting with details related to the Memorial Center FIT solar program and options to proceed, and that staff return to the future general committee meeting with the details related to potential future use of the youth arena facility.
Thanks, Councillor Severson. Just to clarify the language of the motion, there was no decision point about this. This motion was, or this topic was to receive information on the status of the project at the General Committee. But being it's such a major project for the community, we felt it only right to leave it a separated item in case members who couldn't be at General Committee last week have some questions. And we're going to ask Mr. Wood to provide a abbreviated version of his presentation. Of course, Council as a whole did see most of this in a closed session before this was brought out for the public to see. But we've invited Mr. Wood to provide a presentation, and then we'll have discussion. Mr. Wood, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Thank you for the introduction. I did present this last week to General Committee, so I've got an abbreviated version, and I'll see if I can avoid the missteps that I may have made last week doing this. So, test of this.
And Mr. Wood, can I recommend that we save questions for the end?
Certainly, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Does this change it, or do you change it? Seems no bueno. Anyway, introducing the multi-use recreational facility, or the MRF as we're calling it as an acronym, as a project update. So the reduced version of this presentation is intended to give some updates on the project design project component of this, which is really all that's in play at the moment, and give some important timelines, some updates, and show the renderings that are prepared by the designers, and also talk about the most recent cost updates for the project. So go from there. So IDEA and N45 are the collaboration company that we've hired to do the design for the arena facility. Last June, if I'm not mistaken, we brought forward a presentation to council indicating that we'd had a concept developed with the Arena Advisory Committee and with various inputs from different user groups and stakeholders. Given the approval from council at that time, we've moved this all the way forward now to a 50% detailed design, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually very, very substantial. So this is right down to every corner of the map, so to speak, filled in for the design, every piece of the project and renovation spoken for, and detail compiling for it. So at this point, we've approved the 50% detailed design, of course, with some input from the Arena Advisory Committee again, and indicated where there was little touch-ups needed, for instance. So what we're indicating today is that by June 14th, we're on schedule to receive the 95% detailed design submittal. The schedule that's provided by the designers is that it provides roughly 2 weeks to review that package, which should be, I think, more straightforward than doing the first initial complete review. So by the June, provided staff can respond by June 28, we should have the complete detailed design completion, 100% detailed design submission by July 19th. So that would be the single largest obstacle that the project has faced to becoming shovel ready. So shovel ready from our point of view, and from the point of view of being able to apply for grant money and having the status, would be we've all the zoning, all the building permits complete, all the property considerations complete, and that would we'd effectively be ready if we were able to tender, if we had funding and approval from council, break ground and start working. Of course, that's a separate component, but nonetheless, we would be in that position. That's of course mentioned in this next slide here. So following the completion of the zoning, planning, and issuance of building permits, which is included in the scope of design, we will be ready for construction. All right, so the next slide is about the concepts and the public renderings, or sorry, the public distribution of renderings. So this is, of course, the fun stuff. So now that we have our detailed design more and more compiled, the artists with the architects were able to provide renderings that show an impression of what the project will look like. And again, one of the gentlemen, the lead architect, had me to commit to say that renderings are artist interpretation, although they're extremely accurate. They may not be exactly the color, for instance, of what we use. And the joke I use is that although there's ducks shown in there, there may not be ducks. There may not be a flag exactly how you see it, and so forth. So moving to the next slide, we start off with the southwest view of the facility. So this is effectively the project has three large components: exterior work, this is the ball diamonds and all of that good stuff, parking lots; the new build, which is what you see primarily facing here; and the renovations to the Memorial Center. So in the renderings, the Memorial Center doesn't look that different, but it will be. But this, of course, is our front-facing two-story view of what the community hall on the second floor and the entrance to the new facility will look like. If you go to the next slide, you effectively see the same building, but from the southeast facing component. You can kind of see the gray shape of the Memorial Center roof. So that is part of the renovation as we completely replace that, and it will not be yellow moving forward. So again, you see the facility and some of the parking lots, and the actual, what you see front and center on the drawing or the rendering is the new ice plant, which will facilitate both facilities. Next slide is the northeast facing. So part of the scope for this, and part of what we can have discussion about down the road, is the size of the generator that will run this facility. This generator, as it's shown, is actually in what we've included in some of the information. It was big enough to run the facility independent of hydro, which is expensive, but it is an option that we have to work with. Next slide again shows the entranceway, again facing northwest. So this shows a different view of the same facility, but you get a closer up look. One of the things that's interesting about this and the previous is that there will be a completely new parking lot behind the new building. So where effectively our Goldie Christopher Ball Diamond is, it gets completely consumed by parking lot, new outdoor facilities, and the new building. So that is part of the outdoor work, is to rebuild that. Next slide shows an interior view. So this is the the shot of the inside of the new facility facing east. So what you end up seeing is part of the exercise track in the top. I noticed some of the comments online is whether or not there is an exercise track, and there very much is. You see the seating on the left, which again, just as a reminder, that was another comment that we'd seen online. How much seating is there? So there's roughly 400 seats. This is meant to be a direct replacement of the youth arena, which is roughly 200 seats. So we're actually increasing our seating complement significantly. And there is I don't remember exactly the fire code occupancy, but there is a significant ability to watch ice venues from the second floor on the exercise track. Another very interesting feature that is going to make this facility, and I suppose appropriately for this week, appropriate to note, this facility will be one of the very few that is going to be designed specifically to host barrier-free sports. So maybe if you wouldn't mind, Sheena, going back one slide. If you can notice on the right side, the player benches and penalty boxes are glassed. So this is allow anybody who is, for instance, in a sled, for our sledge hockey, to be able to actually see the game while it's being played, while on the bench surfaces, or on the I guess they are bench areas. Yeah. Okay, so next view is again just of the exercise track. So it will be a complete perimeter exercise track that's 3 lanes wide, and I think is pretty much the new standard or state of standards in these facilities as they're built. The next view is the new community hall. So part of the renovation to the Memorial Center is to transform the existing community hall into 2 smaller rentable or usable hall spaces that can either be combined or separated into 1,000 square feet each, and a new lobby area and a new canteen area. So what that effectively means is we reconstruct the community hall on the second floor of the new building, and it's a slightly different shape, but generally speaking, the same footprint that we had. So what's shown here is the standard layout, which we're going to intend to market, where if you were having a wedding, for instance, which is quite popular in the hall, that these are the number of tables, the number of chairs, how they're laid out, and they're specifically designed to be stored in the facility in the rooms that are available. So it's kind of a very interesting feature from staff point of view. The next slide shows where, I guess, the existing community hall is in the Memorial Center. So to the right, you can see there's 2 glass sliding doors. This is also a neat feature that we've seen in other areas, where if you wanted those those spaces to be open to the public, for instance, for a large tournament or a game or something like this, you roll them open and they're available for whatever you can imagine putting there. But if there is a birthday, for instance, or a smaller community meeting, these can be segregated and rolled down. So again, combine their 2,000 square feet of space, separated they're 1,000 each. A lot of the discussion on the design side of this is very much, if you build it, they will come. We really like to see a lot of inclusion of different things that we currently see in the facility. It would be nice if there was clubs that met here, or perhaps fitness programs that wanted to use it, any number of things. But the idea is we don't currently have this space, and we will in the new facility. So it's quite exciting. This next slide again shows the same view, but from the opposite direction. So you see the new canteen area. So this is actually another interesting feature of the design, is that we will have quite a bit of upgraded facilities outside, including pickleball, play areas, these kind of things. We've never really successfully been able to service those with canteens and so forth. So one of the things that's designed into this canteen is that it is able to serve the arena side. And of course, you can imagine during games and large gatherings, this would be the place to be. And if you were using the northmost room, or if you had no partition in the segregated rooms, the canteen is able to serve those rooms as well. And third, and probably also the most interesting, is that you can serve the outside players. So there's lots of softball, baseball, diamond will be built, pickleball, and we'll have the ability to actually serve canteen wares to those folks. Next shows, again, this is the existing community hall in the Memorial Center. You can see that there's been a lot more glazing added to be able to see the ice surface from the warm lobby area. Worth mentioning as well that this lobby area is a continuous hallway that goes from one end of the existing Memorial Center as you would enter to the exact opposite end of the new facility where you would enter. So it should appear to the user as a continuous hallway space that is open lobby. The Brockville and Area Sports Hall of Fame gets redistributed as the hobby gets redesigned, but all of the available space and more than it exists currently for the local Sports Hall of Fame gets built up again in the lobby. So we think that's quite a handy way to recognize our Hall of Fame athletes. The next slide is probably not as interesting, but it's interesting in how the building is built. So the new facility has to stand independently of the Memorial Center. They can't be I suppose, carrying the same loads across the existing building and the new. It's because the Memorial Center was purpose-built in the 1980s. It was very much conforming to the 1980s and still functions quite well. But if we did modify the structural components of the Memorial Center, we'd have to go through an entire review process to bring that building up to 2024 building code standards, which would be an extensive exercise that's in all reality not required. So this shows what the interstitial space is between the buildings. To the user, it'll seem seamlessly like you're part of one building, but when you look at it structurally, they are standing independently. So kind of a neat feature that divide the two buildings in a way that I think will actually add some value. You can share amenities and so forth. The next slide talks about the updated cost estimate. So now we've passed the fun part, we're into the not so fun part. So part of the presentation that was done originally showed a Class D estimate in June that showed the cost estimates of what the data, materials, and labor and so forth were for the projects of this kind at that time. Now, when fast forwarding to early 2024, we now have a Class C estimate, which is a little more accurate because we have less variables now in the design, but also reflects today's value of the same materials, labor, and so forth. So there's a noticeable difference. Of course, it went from $33.4 million in June of 23 to $41.3 million estimated in February 24. Of course, I would come armed with reasons for this, and those are from the designers that the models and the statistic analysis that they do, it included notably a 9% escalation in specific construction materials. These primarily, as it relates to the project, are asphalt, steel, and concrete. Of course, most of the project is built with all of those things. There was a slight increase, there has been an increase to the scope of repairs in the Memorial Center. To summate that, it is due to a lot of the water infiltration we have from the roof, which is a result of the solar panels that are there. And a couple other things. We did increase the square footage slightly of the new build to facilitate a better entrance to the second hall community floor for both stairs and elevator and all these things, which is really, I think, actually very good added value. And the cost of the backup generator and the line reactor. So as I mentioned, the scope that we built this project was to be able to sustain the facility if there was an extended power outage, and it could be used for, if you can imagine, emergency shelter for a community, and to have the ice sustained as a secondary thing. So what we've currently proposed in the next page is that the generator, as it's sized, as it's costed, would actually run the facility completely independently of hydro. So because it's that big, it has a much higher cost, and it also requires some more industrial electronics, for instance, line reactors, to run safely. So the next slide, if you would please, shows the differences of each component as it goes from 23 to 24. So to kind of illustrate some of the things that we'd mentioned, the new build went from roughly 18.1 to $21.3 million. That is, again, a reflection of the escalations and the slightly larger footprint. The Memorial Center renovations was quite significant, went from 3.6 million to 5.2 million. So that's, again, as we peeled the layers of the onion back at the Memorial Center, we were finding more and more that need to be repaired. Site work, fairly consistent, went from 2.3 nearly to 2.8. So that's within the kind of margins that we were looking for escalation, or looking at. Then there's a number of features that were included in the original presentation, which was color and lighting and video screens. So this is what we were calling the Brockville experience. So one of the things in the scope was that we wanted to have a modern facility that was able to facilitate, for instance, an ice dancing show where they didn't have to rent and bring in lights and this sort of thing. So with the package that's being presented, we would have the ability to do a smaller, more regional version of what an NHL rink can do. So it turns lights off, lots of flashing lights, lights that are coordinated with music, and quite a big video screen. The pickleball courts, so again, probably everyone's familiar with the efforts of the pickleball club to raise money. So this reflects the scope of what they've asked for within the project, and is within what we'd estimated. The lighting upgrades to the existing arena. So this is, again, to convert all the lights in there from old sodium ballasts and this sort of thing up to LED. Ball diamond replacements. So we had to rebuild the ball diamonds that have to displace for the project. And the generator. So the generator specifically went from 300 to 634,000. And that's because it's a big generator. So this is one of those levers, if we choose to, we could pull to say, you know what, an extended power outage like this, ice will be the least of our worries. We'd like to, bank on the fact that the lights and the heat and all that kind of thing will work. So future discussion for consideration. General contractor. So what the designer's done is also give us numbers for contingency that we should consider, bonding, fees, and the general contractor costs. So what they've done is generalized that the general contractor cost to be roughly 10% of the project, which accounts for nearly 3.1 million of the quoted price. Fees, which ironically are more or less to us for building permits and so forth, would be 922,000. Bonding and insurance, they put it 1%, so it's roughly 300,000. Then design and construction contingencies actually both equate to roughly 6.15 million. So it's worth noting, of 41.3 million, 6 of that is contingency. Now it's irresponsible not to include it, but in reality, it proves a point really that the only way to test this and work their statistical estimates is to actually tender it. So that's effectively the arrow we're coming into for the project, but ultimately it illustrates that we're quite on our way for this. The last slide that I have here just illustrates, of the 41.3 million, the estimate doesn't include what I would require council to make as a decision for the solar panels, whether we include them, whether we mothball them, whether we liquidate them. All of those things have a cost impact, which would be part of the project, but we aren't considering in the 41.3. This does not include the costs if Hydro One were to impose an upgrade requirement on the city. So we do have a substantial electrical feed there, but they are working right now on the design for this with the designers to say you may need to upsize that. So, and there's no telling what that'll be until we actually get to the point where they've confirmed whether it's required or not. And it also doesn't account for what staff would certainly propose as a third-party project manager to work with us on this. So, yeah, so there are some estimates that still need to be cleared up, but they're all estimates that are within council's ability to make decisions. So, all in all, the project is quite on its way. In July, we'll have the completed design, and we'll be in a much more favorable position to move forward. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Wood, and we're grateful for all your hard work on this. Thank you so much. Members of council, I'll open the floor for discussion and questions. I just want to remind you that staff is coming back with a future report with respect to solar panels and with respect to future uses of the youth arena. So I don't really feel that it's necessary for us to delve into those aspects tonight. But certainly now's the time if you have questions about what was presented. So Councillor Severson, followed by Councillor Laverne and other speakers as they come forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two quick questions circulating in the community that I've had. What have we, at rough estimate, what we spent to date up to probably what we will be spending with the final design? And how much, if you know, do we have in reserve before we even start our costing and then funding from the other two levels of government?
So thank you, and through your worship to Councillor Severson. So I can only provide, unfortunately, rough numbers without getting back, but I do know of the $1.2 million budget we had for design, we're currently sitting about a $90,000 surplus. So we spent roughly 1.1. So, and that would be from the design to different modifications along the way, all the surveying that we've had to do, a lot of the site plan work, these kind of things. So it has been a cumulative effort to get to that point. Now, the director of finance would be able to pull this up probably really quickly, but I think the arena reserve is in the $2 million neighborhood.
Any follow-up? Okay, thank you. Councillor Laverne.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. And I'm sorry if we talked about that before, but just to remind me, was the name of the center, that new project, can be sponsored, like the Slush Puppy Arena in Kingston, for example? Yes?
So through you, Your Worship, yes, actually, one part of the rendering shows a backlit city logo, and then also a default name. So it's one of the things we actually spoke very recently with in a recent project meeting, is that we exclude this from the project other than to say it can be lit. So there'd be power there, and there'll be a support area to mount whatever you come up with there. But knowing that all of these projects tend to go through a title sponsorship phase, they will be available to be whatever you can conceive to put there. But we need you to confirm what will go there. So yes, very much it will be the intention would be to find a title sponsor and to mount it to the building.
May I just add, Councillor Laverne, the city manager, I believe, and the director of finance is working on a report that we're probably going to see in June on sponsorship in general, but also sponsorship with respect to this project. So they're going to be looking at all different sorts of opportunities.
I have two other small
please.
questions. The canteen, and I know we just voted for the option for the arena canteen. You're probably aware, I know that Laverne's, in no name related, but Great Brunch though, in Gananoque, they were doing at the Lou Jeffrey Arena canteen, and it worked pretty well. Is it something that we could oomph in our canteen, like to have maybe a nice coffee shop that only not sell hot dogs and fries, but like a little bit more substantial? Because we know that we're gonna have like not steak. But if we have like people like going and training and using the track and everything, they might not want a hot dog after, but.
So, this is something through your worship. This is something we've actually talked about with the designers extensively for a bunch of reasons, is that, and we've sought their guidance on this to a degree too. They suggest, and from what we can tell, we've concurred that keeping the canteen with a canteen menu, which unfortunately, as you mentioned, hot dogs, hot chocolate, popcorn, French fries, these kind of things, allows us to build a canteen that's cost effective, that meets sort of the objective of being very valuable to the facility, but also prevents you from having to go to a great deal of trouble to meet all the fire prevention code requirements for having a full kitchen. So what we've aimed at this point is to provide precisely that. Now, back to what you had mentioned, the recent report that we had given was to illustrate, of course, that we don't have a canteen operator at this point at either rink, and that the options really were to seek requests for expression of interest, as you mentioned, Laverne's is as GAN, or to look at what other arenas, and I would say the majority of the arenas that we've seen is that they're staffed with seasonal staff that manage that and produce effectively a limited canteen menu. So we've been trying to strike the balance of that value, and what we've given direction and tend to come back to in June is to say, here's how we would do it. Here's what we think the costs are, the benefits are, and the drawbacks are. That being said, there's nothing stopping council from deciding we would like to go to expressions of interest. And then we would bring those back and say, here's what the potentials are. So that's a long-winded answer. I apologize, but
No.
those are effectively the avenues we can travel to.
Thank you. My last question. I'm done after Phil. I'm done. You know, we're thinking wedding second floor, and I know we chat about it. The entrance, am I going to my wedding and I see like hockey player passing back and forth and I have to pass by the put-in stand, or is there like a sub entrance?
So through your worship, excellent question. In fact, that is the pretty much reason that we increased the square footage of the new facility so slightly, was that, and again, we were very much thinking and based on the advice that we had been given to by event organizers, was that you wanted to be able to facilitate food either made on site or preheated on site or delivered to site, and have an avenue for guests to come independently of what's going on the, say, the grander lobby or the ice surfaces. So as a user or as a, say, an event holder, you have the ability to come in from a slightly different entrance into the lobby and directly up the stairs before going into the lobby, or going into the common elevator, both bringing you up to a separate sort of vestibule that you can choose to go on to the walking track or the exercise track or into the community hall. So we did take an extensive amount of effort to segregate the two. In fact, we even went so far as to try and quantify what the sound attenuating value is of the separation between the ice surface and the community hall. So pretty confident that we've done a decent job, at least a high value job in separating the two. But ideally, if you were coming to a wedding, you would not really have to cross paths with people who are in the lobby or in the facility. It's not perfect, but it is quite separated.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Laverne. All right, if there's Councillor Earl.
Yeah, certainly the design is, looking very, very spiffy. I like some of the entranceways, and I like the modernization. I like the chance for the different venues for community events and so on. But the numbers are what kind of concern me. And if we go back to when this project was originally proposed, it was a project that was down in the Councillor Calabas may correct me, but I believe we were talking down around, something $12-15 million range. And that's what we did a feasibility study on. So we now are looking at something in the 41 million, which, more or less is 3 times the amount. So one of the big piece of the puzzle we seem to be lapping is the feasibility study on the new amount. And I think that's a relatively important fact. The designs look good. I think we're all seduced by the beauty of the entranceways and the passageways, but there is after that's all built and we get our tax bills, I think we really need to do a little bit more financial work in here to essentially redo that feasibility study with a whole lot different numbers than they were previously done with. You know, the average age of population of the city of Brockville is, I think, 52, if I remember right. 52-year-olds don't have a lot of kids. The provincial average is down around 40 something, 42, 44. And like I say, but the big thing is the total volume amount that we did the feasibility study on was 1/3 the amount that we're looking at spending. So, you know, I think in any proper due diligence, we would be greatly remiss in our due diligence if we didn't address that new number with a new feasibility study, or at least an upgraded version. The last feasibility study, I think, was done by a class from Queen's University, who at that point in time, maybe 12, 14 years ago, none of those kids would have been paying taxes. They'd all be paying taxes now. I expect to be interesting to see what their new version was now that they were a contributing part of it. But I do believe that number is a little scary when it's not backed up by a proper feasibility study now.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Earl. I think everyone in this room is concerned about the costs, and we will certainly be working through that. Councillor Wells, you're next.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Yeah, always appreciate discussion and consideration of costs. It's part of our responsibility at the council table. But I just want to note that every time we've talked about a cost-saving measure, I've gotten a fairly unanimous feedback from the community that they don't want us to reduce the scope of the project. You know, this is a project that might have a high cost, but it also has a lot of value for the community. And of course, there comes a point when we have to consider whether we can afford a piece of infrastructure, but this is something that we've been planning on for a long time, and the costs have gone up and up and up. And I guarantee you that when the time comes that we have to build it, if we were to hold off, the costs would be yet even higher. So I appreciate, this isn't my line, Councillor Fullarton said this to me, 52-year-olds might not be having a lot of kids, but they're going to have a lot of grandkids. And we have future residents of this community who deserve good infrastructure, good recreation infrastructure. And we are not going to find a different answer to that with a new feasibility study. So I don't know that another delay, further information gathering is going to get us anything except for a higher cost on this project. So anyway, this is an information report. We're not making any decisions tonight. So
thank you. Very well. All right. I would just like to comment. I had a chance to comment at committee, but with respect to the feasibility report, I remember it very well, although I was not an elected official at that time, but it was a feasibility of whether Brockville needed 3 pads of ice. We're looking at replacing an arena that is past its prime. I think we all agree. So a little different situation, and I sure wish it would have been built when it was only 12 million, but we can't turn back the clock. So with that, we will call the question. And just to remind staff, we're strictly voting on receiving this report. I just want the community to know we're not voting to go ahead and spend $40 million tonight. We're simply voting to receive a report, and that staff will return with further information on other aspects of this project as we move forward. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the matter before you, Councillor Deery, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Earl?
Sir, yes.
Councillor Fullarton?
Yes.
Councillor Hobbs?
Yes.
Councillor Calabas?
Yes.
Councillor Laverne?
Yes.
Councillor Severson?
Yes.
Councillor Wales?
yes.
Mayor Rent?
Yes.
That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Councillor Laverne is going to bring us the next item with respect to the Winter Classic motion.
Sorry about that. 2024-79, the Winter Classic proposed upgrades to the Rotary Outdoor Rings. That council approved the proposed upgrades to the Rotary Outdoor Rings as follows. Installation of rubber matting from the change room to the washrooms, construction of a wheelchair accessible seating area including landscaping and lean-to roofing, installation of a new score clock, installation of access doors on the existing benches, improved water service on or on-site storage to facilitate future use of an ice resurfacer and installation of devices to mitigate problems related to overnight condensation buildup, and that the council approved that the upgrades be funded by the Winter Classic groups, and that staff report to council as required in accordance with the city procurement policy.
Thank you, Councillor Laverne. So the only reason that this item is a separate item is that we didn't want something so significant about people working really hard to improve our community to just sort of get buried in a consent agenda. There was no controversy or dissent about this one. We just wanted it on the floor so that members of this body would be able to speak to it tonight. We're not going to ask for a staff overview, but Mr. Wood is able to take any questions. Councillor Severson, you're first.
Thank you, Worship. I just noted on the things that they're going to be doing at the outdoor rink. One of them is the construction of a wheelchair accessible seating, which we had the accessible issues here tonight. So once again, they're continuing their good work over at the outdoor rink, and Councillor Fullarton praised them as chair in the last meeting, and I would like to do the same. I think they have, I don't know, it's close to 2 million that they've raised for this outdoor rink, I think. And but I remember at the last meeting, Councillor Fullarton, that you asked for if there was charges. I don't see that on here, so I don't know if can you answer that question?
Thank you, Councillor Fullarton.
With your indulgence, yes, one of the reasons I wanted to have it separated is there was a reference in their report to fees that they might encounter, and I wanted to make sure that if the fees that they were talking about were fees payable to the city, for instance, building permits and those types of things, that we of course could waive those fees, and that it could be somewhat automatic that we would waive them so that they wouldn't be held up or feel that they had to go through, people had to fill out forms and do things that isn't necessarily their first order of business. Mr. Woods has looked into it and found that if there are fees required, there might be something through electrical, and they could certainly be helpful to them, but that they don't expect that there's much of anything in this that requires building permit or anything like that. But I think staff understand that the motivation of the council is that we would like to make this as easy and be as supportive of this project as possible. But that fees are not going to be a sticking point for them, for sure.
Follow up, Councillor Severson.
Yeah, so it's just kind of an unwritten thing that we don't need it in this per se. Are you saying? Because the precise scope isn't in here, they're not 100% sure of, does a wall need to be built, or so they're not entirely sure about whether a building permit will be required. But if it is, they understand that we'd like to make it easy, but until there's a little more detail about this, they didn't know whether there were fees necessary. But I think we've underlined it for them now.
You're satisfied with that? Okay, and thanks, Councillor Fullarton. Councillor Hobbs?
Thanks, Your Worship. I really just want to say thank you to the Winter Classic group for this volunteer group, basically, that worked so hard and have contributed so much to our community for the one event that they hold there, that they have provided so much in the past, and what they're adding now is just incredible for this outdoor arena. And I really want to commend Mr. Wood as well, because they work so closely together and make sure that this all happens. And so this is a really nice community partnership between the city and this the Winter Classic group. So just want to thank you, and looking forward to, well, I'm not skating anymore, but looking forward to some grandchildren maybe skating there. Thank you.
Councillor Deery.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just to echo the comments of my peers, I also just wanted to make sure that we don't forget to thank the sponsors, because, if you go to the website, you can see just how many people are dedicating not just money, but their time. It's an amazing committee. I've had an opportunity to see them in action, as many of us have. They've been working at this tirelessly. Every year they bring us, great entertainment. Hopefully we'll see more of the Leafs, but, it's wishful thinking.
I think they have time.
But I do. Sorry, Ron. I do really think, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the sponsors. And if anyone out there is listening, if you check out the website, look at the number of sponsors, look at the people that dedicate their time and certainly put in the finances that we need to make these things happen. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen here, but also in the future, because I think this is a great group of people and they got a lot of community support. So thanks to everyone involved. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor Deery. Any further discussion? All right. I just echo everything and all the complimentary words that were shared. I do just want to mention there's a bit of a procedural aspect about this. And I know I've met with the Winter Classic Committee and a couple other committees that do wonderful things for the community. And sometimes it's been a little frustrating for them because we do have some policy and procedure around how the city receives things that become city assets and so forth. It's all the result of the strengthening of policy and procedure as a result of the tunnel project years ago and the recommendations from KPMG that we've got tighter procedures around things. And I realize that some groups find that a little bit frustrating and a little unusual, but by approving this motion now, it sets these things in place that when the Winter Classic Committee gets to these projects, they'll make it a little easier to get them completed. And as the motion says, that staff will report to council when there's any considerations around the city's procurement policy. So thank you for the discussion, and we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. On the matter before you, Councillor Deery, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Earl?
Yes.
Councillor Fullarton?
Yes.
Councillor Hobbs?
Yes.
Councillor Calavat?
Yes.
Councillor Laverne?
Yes.
Councillor Severson?
Yes.
Councillor Wales?
Yes.
Mayor Wren?
Yes.
That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, so I'll go back to Councillor Fullarton for the remaining item from the General Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. Report number 2024-47, municipal accommodation tax rate increase. That the municipal accommodation tax, MAT, be increased to 6% effective January 1st, 2025 on all hotel, motel, lodge, inn, short-term rental accommodations under 30 days, and a $6 per night MAT for bed and breakfast establishments.
Thanks, Councillor Fullarton. Councillor Severson, you'd asked this to be removed, so I'll give the floor to you first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I speak to it first?
Yes.
Okay. I have an amendment to put on the floor that the motion be amended to change the 6% to 5%. That's my amendment. And I know that I'm aware that I voted in favor of it at committee level up to the 6%. But since that time and until today, I've done a little research on it and what other municipalities are charging. And if you'll bear with me, I'll just give you a few of them. So Ottawa charges 5, Kingston 5, Oshawa 4, Belleville 4, Cornwall 4, Toronto is 4 to 6, and Montreal 3.5. So it seems to me that going from a 4% increase to a 6% increase, even though like a lot of the patrons that have presumably agreed to it, according to the tourism chair, I still feel that it's too much for our small community and it might put us in a place where people might not stop here. Who knows? I just think it's a bit much in this day and age. The tax is a tax. We're just one taxpayer. So I don't want to be above what other municipalities are across the region and even as far as Toronto and Montreal. I know that we need the funds, but certainly we could find them a different way. So I'm proposing that we reduce it to 5%.
So Councillor Severson, no apology needed. That's the beauty of our process, that we have committee and sometimes we get different information after and we feel differently when we get to this body. So it's the public process in action. So no worries there. I'm going to open the floor to discussion, but I just want to make an upfront comment. I'm not I'll go with consensus on this. I'm not sure how I feel about your amendment because I stay in a lot of hotels and I think it's important to look at dollars, not percentages. Some of the cities that you mentioned, an overnight stay is $400 plus. And in Brockville, I did a little research myself this week, the average hotel room is $140. So 4%, our current rate is $5.80 in MAT tax. If we go to 5%, it's $7.25. If we go to 6%, it's $8.70. So the difference between your amendment and what's on the agenda tonight is $1.50. And if you're staying overnight in Ottawa, you're paying $20 in MAT tax. So with that, we'll open the floor to discussion. Councillor Hobbs. Well, we'll go with you, and then Tim, I haven't seen his hand, but
Okay, sorry.
like you can put it up.
Thanks, Your Worship. I understand the feeling. I understand that, you know, jumping from 4 to 6 seems like a lot. When Kingston moved from 4 to 5, that meant $1 million of additional revenue, not 130,000, which this represents. 1% here in Brockville represents 130,000. And tonight we spent a lot of time talking about things that are tourism related that we end up paying for, like the arena, like the Hockey Canada opportunity, like even the staff work at the Rotary Outdoor Rink, notwithstanding what the tunnel costs us every year for, is the main tourism asset. And on a good year, when we're not going through what we're going through now, it's $100,000 a year for the tunnel. And we also support the library, the art center, and the museum, and all of the parks and all of the islands. And these things are expensive. And we want them to be wonderfully maintained, not just for visitors to the city, but for the people that live here that have to sometimes put up with a lot of tourists being here. And so I see it as, when I look at the issues with the actual amount, I agree with you, Your Worship, that it isn't going to be, and it hasn't been in any place it's been implemented. It hasn't been a stopper for people to visit and stay in an accommodation. And I know when the tourism group surveyed the accommodation providers, they would rather have seen it jump up to a 2% rather than, you know, have them go through an administration detail, you know, now and then in 2 years. And we've had Matt in for 8 years, whereas a lot of the other communities that were just mentioned and that were actually in the report, because there was about 40 of them that were listed in the actual report from tourism. Really, we've been there one of the longest charging Matt and not changing the rate. But when we have the issue with the bed and breakfast, the traditional bed and breakfast, and I know that Ottawa does not charge them, I would much rather see us exempt those traditional bed and breakfasts than do away with $130,000. I think we'd be better off to do away with $500 than $130,000. That would help us with all of these other issues. And you know, when you look at the administration of doing this, I would think that for a traditional B&B, there's a lot more manual administration to doing that, whereas when Airbnb collects it, they collect it and remit it to the city. The hotels sort of have a system that's more automatic, but for the B&Bs themselves that are doing things a little bit differently and having to deal with a lot of different booking platforms and fees, I think that's an issue. And the other thing that I know tourism is looking at right now is the fact that HST is charged on top of the MAT tax. And I know they're looking at how to, you know, they've got an open case with the government now to look at perhaps changing that so you're not taxed on top of a tax. And I know that was a concern that we received, was that the tax was a tax on a tax in the administration. So for the administration and for the issues that the traditional B&Bs are encountering versus what we would gain, I would rather see us stick to the 6% and just exempt our traditional B&Bs from any of the MAT, because it's a big hassle for them. And, you know, maybe we should have done the report that way in the first place, but, and followed Ottawa's lead, but All of those other cities that we mentioned that just went to 5% have a significant amount of money that's provided to them by the city, by hotel associations, by all sorts of other means. And we just don't have that here. So in my mind, to try and keep this city in the best shape possible, to have it look wonderful and to have our tunnel paid for and not have our taxpayer on the hook for everything that comes along. And the other reason why we wanted this money was to make sure we had enough money to support festivals and events here. And, you know, we have had, since I've been on this council, some of the events and different festivals come here and ask for money. And it's not necessarily a given that they will get it. And it's not necessarily a fair across the board situation, because it's only the people that come here that take a chance and ask for the money that might get it. And we didn't give any in the last budget. And so I would really like to see, well, not to the people that asked, we didn't give it to the three that had asked. And so I would like to see that tourism were able to implement this event fund, that they could receive applications from anyone in Brockville that is running an event or a festival. And if we don't have this extra money, we can't do that. And I think it's really important to support all of the festivals and events and all of the opportunities that could come here that just help our businesses and help our economy here. So I guess all this to say is I don't support the motion, but I do support what is behind it and the protection of the B&Bs. And I'm perfectly fine with eliminating the MAT tax for the B&Bs. And another reason why I'm for that is because if anybody in Brockville is renting an accommodation on their own, not through Airbnb and not through, and they're not a hotel or whatever, it's just a private citizen, we do not get MAT tax from them. And, and the administration and the issues with doing that would be horrendous for the city. So in some ways, it's not really fair that if somebody is taking people into their home and doing the same thing that traditional B&Bs do, they don't have to pay any MAT taxes or possibly any taxes at all. So just to make it more fair, and because we're probably never going to move to a policy where we would charge anybody that is taking people into their homes on a short-term basis, I think it would be nice to leave it and exempt the B&Bs.
Thank you, Councillor Hobbs, for your comments. I just want to make sure nothing's misconstrued. So the only thing before us at the moment is an amendment to charge 5% rather than 6%. We've had no discussion about exempting B&Bs. We've also had no discussion about using this funding specifically or no decision about using this funding for any specific reason. That'll be a future discussion, although we have talked about this would provide us some opportunities we don't have today. I've got Councillor Deery and then Councillor Earl. And then Councillor Fullarton.
Sorry, I think Councillor Earl was ahead of me, but if that's okay, Jeff?
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, I just, a lot of the comments that, I mentioned some of the comments that Councillor Severson pointed out in terms of, there only is one taxpayer. And my rationalization for voting in favor of the 6% at the general committee was because, as Councillor Hobbs points out, we have a lot of assets that we're not being able to properly fund, in particular tourist assets. And again, as the mayor pointed out, we're not deciding where the funding will go, but I think we see that there is a need for some more revenue to help us offset that cost to our municipal taxpayer. I kind of look at this as a little bit differently. I look at it almost as a user fee. It's for people coming into your community that are going to be taking advantage of services that we in particular are funding that we're not charging for. So in order for us to maintain those particular assets, that money does have to come from somewhere. And lowering the burden on our municipal taxpayers, to me, is my number one priority right now, just because we've had an unfortunate situation in the last, I would say 4 years, where we've had to really hit our taxpayers with unfavorable taxes, and I don't want to see an additional burden because we can't make a decision here today. I do respect Councillor Severson's point of view that, you know, we are one taxpayer, and some of the letters that we received as councillors obviously pointing out that, you know, it is the same taxpayer. But I'll share with you, I was in Toronto for some personal reasons, and I was compelled to get a hotel for a couple of nights. My bill was over $1,100 for 2 nights. It wasn't because I went to the most posh hotel. That was the rate. And I was in downtown. I had to be close to St. Mike's. And, you know, to compare again from the package that was presented to us on behalf of the tourist group, there were 40 listed cities. The cities that ranked in that top rate, they were the $400 a night cities. And I've stayed in almost all of them, so I can speak out of personal experience. And, you know, to compare that to a small town of Brockville, where again, you know, average, as the mayor pointed out, average cost of 150. I'd love to get a hotel of equivalent value, of equivalent accommodation in Toronto for the same amount. And so I am going to support, I'm not going to support the amendment that Councillor Severson has brought forth, although I respect and appreciate your efforts there. And if I do appreciate some of the points that Councillor Hobbs has brought up. But at this point, I think I'm comfortable staying with the 6%.
Thanks, Councillor Deery. I see your hand, Councillor Severson, but do you want the other speakers to go first? I'll give you last word as the mover, of course. So yes, okay. Councillor Earl, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to vote in favor of Councillor Severson's amendment, just simply because, you know, every government organization going, and Councillor Hobbs mentioned some of them, that HST has a good reason to raise their percentage. We have the new carbon tax. They have a good reason to raise their percentage. They certainly, you know, we can find lots of good reasons to raise the MAT tax here. There's always good reasons to raise the taxes, but can they be justified? You know, I just can't hold my hand up for stuff that has a 50% tax increase. You know, we need to look at new and better ways to do stuff more economically and do it smarter. You know, like, you know, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've taken a lot of stuff in-house. Some of it used to be donated. And, you know, now we're paying staff to do it. We need to look at ways to mitigate our costs instead of just increase our revenue. And, you know, when it goes to the taxpayer, you know, as various speakers have alluded to, there's only one taxpayer, you know, and, you know, for instance, you know, whenever we have a business or we apply for some sort of an event in town, whether it be, you know, we had a bunch of little dancers in a couple of weeks ago at the Art Center that dropped a lot of money in the Art Center, I think $40,000-$50,000 to the Art Center revenue side. But most of them stayed in hotels, and they all would have got hit with, you know, a larger tax increase than normal. We have hockey tournaments, we have baseball tournaments, we have, you know, sailing tournaments, we have all kinds of things. And all these guys that we're trying to attract, we just added on their price. You know, we need to be able to work smarter, not just come up with the answer is, well, we'll just, you know, jump the tax 50%. I just don't find myself of the mind that, you know, when we put 50% tax increases, that I want to hold my hand up for them. And so for that reason, I will be supporting Councillor Severson in that, you know, the answer to everything is not increasing the taxes.
Councillor Fullarton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would echo so much of what Councillor Hobbs was saying. You know, I've been on this council for a while, and I've seen us in the years where we were trying to grow our tourism business, and we didn't have the product that we wanted. And now we have the aquatorium, but we have a funding commitment to them every year. And now we have the tunnel. We have a funding commitment, and we don't have a revenue stream for it. It's free. So when people, come here and they're having access to wonderful attractions, to our beautiful, it's free to go down and on Blockhouse Island and walk around the park. But, it costs us a lot of money to keep all these things going, to keep our docks in good shape that we've just spent a lot of money to, to renovate. So, can I justify it? Yes, they come to Brockville, they're getting reasonable hotel rates. And they've got a beautiful city to come to. I think the gardens in the city are worth the price of the overnight accommodation, and that's something that all comes at city expense. So, I think to keep the perspective here, what we're talking about is if the average cost of a hotel room, the difference that we're talking about in price here of that 1% between, because we're not talking about going to zero, we're talking about the difference between 4% and 6%. We're talking about, that 1% difference, whether it's, so now we're discussing 5% to 6%. Is less than $1.50 on the average cost of a room, $140, but it can make a significant amount of difference. We've just been presented with all the bills and what it's going to cost for us to fix the infrastructure problems in the tunnel. And like I said, there are a lot of people, like the local citizens enjoy it, but the tourists enjoy it as well. And I will remind too that the motion comes into effect for the 1st of January 2025. And by that time, I suspect that a lot of the other people or municipalities that were surveyed on the list may also be moving to increase their rates by then. But even if they're not, I think Brockville is a bargain, but I do know that we have costs. I do know that we're investing in costs, and I know that it's working, that we're investing in it, because the city is vibrant in a way that it hasn't been in a very long time. And so I think we need to stay the course and keep going with the program that we're on, and that is investing. But we do have to find some revenue sources. Our local taxpayers can't bear it all. And I think this is a way to spread to spread those costs around and to spread it to bona fide users, those that are coming here and staying overnight. They're clearly using our infrastructure. And I don't feel too bad if we charge them an extra $1.50 a night to use that infrastructure that our residents are paying for. So I support the 6%.
Thanks, Councillor Fullarton. Councillor Wales.
Thanks, Your Worship. Councillor Fullarton hit on the point that I wanted to make, which is just that the practical amount that we're talking about here is a matter of a few dollars. I appreciate where the motion is coming from very much, and especially the practical concern about worrying about making Brockville seem like a more expensive place to stop. I certainly wouldn't want that, but because the practical amount is only a few dollars on the bill, I would hope that wouldn't influence somebody's decision as to whether or not to stay here. And I would also hope that they see the value in contributing that amount to the infrastructure of the city. Even though it is a small dollar amount, it's not insignificant. I appreciate the fact that folks who are staying in Brockville will be making that contribution. It'll make the city a better place to visit, and it will help make sure our infrastructure is in good shape. We have very limited streams by which we're able to take in revenue as a municipality, and I think we have a responsibility to bring in revenue where we can, so that we can meet our obligations. So.
All right, Councillor Calavas.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make sure that we're still just talking right now about the 5% versus 6%.
That's correct. Yeah.
And then we're also, I just don't want to lose what Councillor Hobbs was talking about as far as the conventional bed and breakfast were concerned.
We could call for another motion after we dispose of this one.
That's exactly. I'd like to separate that to make sure that happens. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other speakers before I go back to Councillor Severson and maybe fit my own little remark in first? No? Okay. All right. Councillor Severson, I will give you the last word. I'm siding with those that are probably going to defeat your motion, because it seems to me that every time this council has an opportunity to generate some more revenue to help us with our quickly rising expenses that there's resistance and people turn a 1% discussion into a 50% discussion about $1.50. It's taking me back to the water treatment, bill to help pay for our $20 million plant. So, I don't know how people in the community think that the corporation of the city of Brockville and this council can make inflation disappear. A head of lettuce used to be 99 cents and it's $8 now. We can't do anything about those things. And when we need to find revenue sources, we have very few opportunities. And that's all I'll say. And over to you, Councillor Severson, before we call the vote.
So shall I say first that doing the research for a week and then bringing it to the floor brought about the conversation that I think was needed in the municipality, because if it had been on the consent agenda, nobody would have heard all this conversation about the pros and cons to increasing from 4 to 6. So I didn't do that to be mean, but
Never.
but nevertheless, it produced the results. So I have an amendment to my amendment.
Okay.
Okay. So it would read that we exempt the bed and breakfast from the MAT tax and leave the MAT tax increase from 4 to 6 for all the other users. And I know our clerk will reword that to make it make sense, but
I'm going to ask the clerk how we deal with the amendment that was on the floor. Should we ask the councillor to withdraw it and make this a new amendment?
she
Or
said
should
I
we
could
vote to
amend my
defeat it?
amendment. But go ahead.
Or amend an amendment? Your
Thank
advice, please.
Thank you, through you. You can amend an amendment so long as it relates to the matter of your amendment. But since this is a separate issue, I would suggest that you withdraw your original amendment and put this one forward, or call the question on the first
no.
amendment and then allow.
I don't need to have the question called up because I understand what's happening. Yeah, I can count votes.
Okay, so just to be.
I'm
just
going to
be clear,
withdraw the original.
You want to withdraw the original? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And so
Well,
my amendment
Not
would be.
wasted discussion, anyone.
Oh.
At all.
So I'm
Good point,
withdrawing it.
Councillor Severson. Okay, so your new amendment.
My
could you
new
repeat it?
amendment would be that we exempt the bed and breakfast from the MAT tax, period.
Okay, so now we'll have a discussion about that. May I just ask if, or suggest, I don't know what the implications of that would be. Would there be staff that could speak to that? Ms. McDonald? Yeah, I see her. I see her.
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't know the figures exactly, but I would request that you put an effective date. So if we're going to increase the MAT from 4 to 6 effective 1st of 2025, then the exemption would also apply for the B&Bs at the same time. But we'd have to go back and see the amount of revenue collected specifically from the B&Bs. We can report that at a further meeting.
All right. And Ms. McDonald, do we have any idea how many B&Bs are in the MAT tax program at this point in time?
I want to say there are 14, but I could be off on that number.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll open the floor to discussion. I see Councillor Wales. And Councillor Earl, did you have your hand up? No, okay. Councillor Wales, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I did. I would like to know what the impact is. It's only the one.
So the city manager just told us it's 14. See, this is why I think we'll need some more information, but Councillor Wales, continue.
I just wonder if it might make sense to defer until we have that answer, if we'd be able to get a relatively quick turnaround. And I assume that there's no worry about postponing a month or a couple of weeks until we have some confirmation. So it'd be my suggestion. And also, I was remiss earlier. I just wanted to acknowledge that we have a couple folks in the gallery tonight who sent us a letter and who've been engaged on the issue. So I appreciate them being here tonight as well. Thank you.
Councillor Severson?
So you wanting me to remove my?
No, got to keep it live.
I guess, so from a practical
Deferring it.
standpoint, we would just defer or refer the matter back to staff, I suppose.
Yeah, refer it back to staff to report to the general committee.
I have no problem with
meeting.
that. I have
Okay.
no problem. So but I have to remove this then because.
No, you can add, you can amend that.
I can amend.
Back here. Okay. I'm just going to ask the clerk her preference. The clerk is the parliamentary expert here and controls the process. So we'll just ask her her best practices.
Thank you, through you. I would suggest that the motion to amend with respect to the B and Bs
Yeah.
be referred
Okay.
to staff or deferred. It's not going back to committee, so deferred to the council meeting of June 11th,
Right.
pending additional information from staff with respect to the impact of removing the B and Bs. But the main motion does remain on the floor.
Wait a
So
minute.
the whole I suppose the whole motion will be deferred. Sandy, thank you.
I think Ms. McDonald has some input on this.
Your worship, through the magic of technology and virtual meetings, I can confirm that in 2023, the amount of revenue collected from B&Bs was $2,200.
Oh,
Okay.
so
Can we go ahead?
Does that put it in perspective?
Magic indeed. That is the information that I required, your worship. It certainly increases my my comfort level. So
we could leave it on
All
the
right.
floor.
all the
So
questions.
shall we, is there any further discussion on Councillor Severson's motion to exempt B and Bs and to proceed with the motion? Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but I guess the amendment is to exempt B and Bs, and we know what the impact is. So yes, okay. Does everybody understand then the amendment before us? Strictly about removing the B and Bs from this program effective January 1st, 2025. All right, any further discussion? We'll call the question on that amendment.
Thank you, your worship. On the amendment before you, Councillor Deery, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Earl? Sorry, Councillor Earl, you're
You were muted,
muted.
Jeff.
Apologize, I hit the button, but it didn't go off.
All right.
So yes, please.
Councillor Fullarton?
Yes.
Councillor Hobbs?
Yes.
Councillor Calavas?
Yes.
Councillor Laverne?
Yes.
Councillor Severson?
Yes.
Councillor Wales?
Yes.
Mayor Wren?
Yes.
The amendment is carried. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so the motion as amended would be that the municipal accommodation tax be increased to 6% effective January 1st, 2025 on all hotel, motel, lodge, inn and short-term rental accommodations under 30 days. And the rest of that motion has been eliminated by the amendment.
Right.
So just want to make sure everyone understands the question on the main motion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Thank you, your worship. On the motion before you, Councillor Deery, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Earl? Sorry, Councillor Earl, you're
Can't hear you,
muted.
Jeff.
No.
Councillor Fullarton?
Yes.
Councillor Hobbs?
Yes.
Councillor Calavas?
Yes.
Councillor Laverne?
Yes.
Councillor Severson?
Yes.
Councillor Wales?
Yes.
Mayor Wren?
Yes.
That is carried. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Very good discussion. So that concludes the general committee agenda. We don't have any new business, unfinished or emergency business. And so I will ask the clerk to read the bylaws, please.
Thank you, your worship. The bylaws before you this evening are as follows. Bylaw number 041-2024 being a bylaw to amend 003-2023 being a bylaw to appoint members to various boards and commissions, specifically Heritage, BRTC, and the Arena Advisory Committee. Bylaw number 042-2024 being a bylaw to remove block floor for registered plan 28M-22 City of Brockville, County of Leeds being PIN number 44168-0314LT from Part Lot Control St. Albans. Bylaw number 043-2024 being a bylaw to amend the Brownfields Community Improvement Plan for the City of Brockville. And bylaw number 044-2024 being a bylaw to amend the Community Improvement Plan for Downtown Brockville, Priority Area 1, Oxford Avenue. Your worship, that concludes the reading of the bylaws.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So the accompanying motion is that bylaws numbered 041-2024 to 044-2024 be introduced and the same now be read a first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be recorded. Councillor Wales, are you willing to make that motion?
I am indeed.
And Councillor Hobbs, will you second? And by show of hands, all in favor, and that is carried. We're going to move at this point to media question period because we will be moving into a closed session before we close off proceedings tonight. So Mr. Zajac, happy to entertain your questions.
All right. Actually, I guess my first question would be, what's the subject matter of the closed meeting?
The subject matter of the closed meeting, which we'll read in the motion, is specifically an agreement around Tall Ships Landing.
All right. So regarding the discussion about the MAT tax, so the issue of exemptions for B and Bs sort of seems to have crept up in this discussion, which was originally about a number. Was this all prompted by correspondence from B and B operators who were concerned?
Yes, absolutely. You know, as I was mentioning about our process, when the committee deals with something that gets a topic out in the community, and you're very helpful in helping spread that news. And we did hear from B&B operators, and there's some present this evening in chambers. So we hope that this is a meet in the middle approach to provide the city with some additional revenue, but also keep in mind the needs of our small business owners.
Okay. Regarding the bid to host a team for the World Juniors, I mean, we've heard to some extent about the state of the current Memorial Center, the leakages in particular from the solar panels and so on. Given that it's unlikely the new arena is going to be built by 2025, is everyone confident that the facilities can accommodate a World Junior team?
Absolutely, no issues there. You know, those leakage issues and so forth have been mitigated, but not solved. And you know, the long-term aspects of the project will permanently solve those issues. But the Memorial Center is quite usable and being well maintained in the meantime.
Okay, so that is an NHL-sized rink that's there?
Correct, yeah.
And there is 2,000 seat capacity?
I couldn't swear to it, but
Give or take.
I think there's capacity for that, yes.
All right. Okay, good. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. We're going to entertain a motion to move into closed session, which reads that pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, Section 239, Sub 2K, Council resolve itself into closed session, closed to the public to consider a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, specifically this evening, agreement Tall Ships Landing. Councillor Deery, are you willing to make that motion?
Yes, I am, Mayor.
Thank you. And we don't need a seconder, but a show of hands, all in favor. That's carried. So we'll take a 5-minute recess and then we'll move into closed session. Thank you all.